How do you tap into the art and science of voice? To access flow state, maximize creativity, build confidence, and unleash your raw, authentic self-expression. Welcome to Business Without Barriers, the show helping you turn barriers into success breakthroughs and thrive in a volatile world, and the show bringing humanity back to business. Be sure to subscribe to BWB TV so you never miss an episode. I'm your host, Carmen Wild, and my guest today is Gavin Masumiya, acclaimed flow and voice coach and founder of Find Your Edge, an exclusive journey into the art and science of voice to transform your leadership and innovation and access flow state. Also the founder of FlowFam, a non-judgmental collective space that unlocks creative potential, group cohesion, and team morale using the emotive power of music. He has a psychology and social behavior degree and is an ICF Accredited Coach. Gavin has synthesized a truly unique healing methodology, which serves to unite conflicted families, inspire new career paths, brings people together in times of isolation, and helps individuals with excessive social anxiety become more proficient public speakers. He works one-to-one and with groups. This is heartwork and is truly one of a kind. I am so stoked to have you on the show today. Very, very warm welcome to you, Gavin.
Thank you so much, Carmen. Beautiful introduction.
Awesome. And we're going to have so much fun today. So I know that you were a shy boy growing up, and you were curious to know how Peter Evanson was so popular and got all the girls that you didn't.
Yes.
How much have things changed for you?
Oh, that's, what's so crazy about that is Peter Evanson, we were like quote unquote best friends, and we call it Red Cluster. I was first grade. And I don't know, after a certain while, it's like I wasn't cool enough. So we stopped hanging out, and then all the girls flocked to him. But, it's been a very, I don't want to say arduous. It's been like a series of peaks and valleys, really just leaning into like, who is Gavin? Why don't I get the girls? Like, why is school harder than me? Why did I get a healthy year back? And this is such a loaded question right here. But what's really made a big difference in my life is sometimes in life, there are people that come into your life. For me, there's two people that during the moment, it didn't really make a difference, but there's two people. One was my basketball coach, Danny O'Fallon. He actually recently just died of cancer. And so rest in peace, Danny. I played basketball most of my life, and he elected me during one of the Friday basketball practices to be captain. And that's when I was still really shy, and I didn't even know how to say no or anything. I guess I'm going to be the captain. And I had to grow into that role. But the thing that I find really moving now is that I never would have volunteered to be that role. And so he elected me to take on a role that I didn't believe in myself. And I think that lends itself a lot to the work that I do now, in holding that steadfast belief in humanity and in people that, hey, your voice is worthy of being heard. And not only that, you can be so good at it. Like, you could get so good at it, and let me help you. So I'm like Danny O'Fallon for more marginalized voices in the world, except they're not holding a ball. The vehicle is their voice. Ariana, 9th grade, art class, Miss Carabio's class, 5th period. She was this, I don't know, she kind of was annoying in the sense that she would not stop talking. And so but we were assigned seats together, and it wasn't a romantic thing, but she would be so curious about my Japanese culture. Do you use chopsticks? Do you like sushi? What kind of things do you like? And it's kind of like, why are you asking me all these questions? But the thing about it is that she slowly opened me up more. And there's this one time, Carmen, and for those of you listening, where she wasn't her peppy self. She had this really big Kool-Aid smile that you see her top and bottom teeth, which I think is rare. Like, you can only see my teeth, my top teeth. You could see both, but she wasn't smiling at all. And she just said, I'm having a really hard day, Gavin. Last night I got in a fight with my dad, and we just don't understand each other. I don't know what to do. What do you think? And she reflected the question back. And what do I know, Carmen? What did I know as a ninth grader? Right? We were ethnically, we were different. And I literally made something up to her. I said like, something like, well, why don't you just tell your dad that you love him? That's all I remember saying. And the next day, I'm walking to fifth period class, and then I hear, Gavin. I turn around. Ariana has her big Kool-Aid smile. She comes up to me and she gives me a hug. And it's so weird. Like, we didn't give hugs in my family growing up. So like, that was so weird. There's something weird but oddly comforting about it. I later found out it's one of my love languages, physical touch. But she hugged me and then she released and said, I remember what you said, and I talked to my dad yesterday. And we're starting to understand each other more. Thank you. Thank you for your advice. And Carmen, that was looking back, that was the first time that I can remember that somebody ever made me feel like what came out of my mouth, like my voice actually meant something. Because every time before then, I did discount my voice like it didn't mean a damn thing. And, you know, looking back, that was so, that moved me. And there's like these little angels, you know, like I'm using that word, it might be controversial, but like there's these little messengers that people that come in, like I tried to reach out to her, I can't find her anymore. These little messengers that come in and they give you something and they're gone. And Danny and Ariana were these little messengers that kind of put me on this slow roll of expressing myself more. So those were two ignite moments and ignite humans in my life that encouraged me that my voice is worthy, that my leadership is worthy.
Wow. Wow. When you tell a story, it takes us right into those moments. It's so brilliant and it's filled with so much suspense and just brilliant. Thank you. Wow. We've started off in a very cool way.
Let's go.
Let's go. Let's go. So you said being held back at elementary school was it had an impact. Tell us how it essentially shaped your future.
Oh, that's great. I love this. So I got here a year back and mom thought that I was really immature because I was just a crybaby growing up. And there was actually I don't remember this, but during that time, our house was getting remodeled. And there was these two construction workers and it was hot in the summer. So they I don't know, they had their overalls on.
Gab,
and
I'm going to have to stop you for a moment. I've got a beeping. My oven is beeping.
Okay.
So I'm going to have
flow break, y'all.
Flow
yes.
break. No 2 minutes.
Okay. This is the flow break. We're going to break the flow a little bit. We're going to turn off the sounds. Sometimes in life, y'all, there's like noise. It's a noisy world. How do we stay focused, right? Sometimes we just remove the situation that causes noise, right? And now we're back. Yes.
There we go. Now
we are.
Great. Commercial break. Silence the noise.
No, I had a little intermission thing for you. So like, yeah, we can keep it going.
Fantastic. I love it. Okay.
Did you want to ask me that again, or do you want me to continue forward?
Let me ask you that again.
Okay.
Tell us about being held back at elementary school and how that essentially shaped your future.
This is a really good question, and there's a really important lesson here for myself and potentially for any of you listening here. Well, one is I got held back. My mom decided to, just because she just thought that I wasn't ready. Like I was immature. I was a crybaby. And there was actually a story where our house was getting remodeled at the time. And there were the two construction workers. They were wearing overalls. It was hot in the summer. And so you could see their armpits. And I didn't like that there was hair under their armpits. Like there were two men that were, and so I would cry to my mom a lot. Like, am I going to get that growing up? I don't want that. And I would literally cry. And I don't remember this, but she just said like, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Like, okay, he is not ready. He just cries over every little thing. And so going into school, I was a year older than everyone. And I didn't think that was going to be a big deal. But every time my birthday, June 10th rolled around, I don't know if I can use any profanity, but people just would talk, like would say, hey, like, oh, did you flunk? Are you stupid? What's going on? And I hated my birthday. I hated my birthday. So I always felt like there was an inferiority. Like I had to, and for me, I was very unstereotypical in the sense that school was pretty hard to me. Like I had to work hard to just get a little above average grades. My sister was a golden child. My brother didn't really care about school, but he's brilliant. Like he could get the same grades as me without even doing any homework because he'll just ace the tests. And I had to do my homework because I couldn't make it up for the test. So I already felt like there was inferiority complex with my younger brother and my older sister, and then inside of the classroom. And so, you know, when Peter Evenson, Sean Henderson, these different people I saw were popular, in a way, like it made me a practical psychologist where I just started, instead of being in the front lines in the scene, I was more of like in the stands, kind of like, why are they so popular? You know, they're jerks. They come off as jerks, but why do women like, they're polarizing. Okay. And I would be, I think my shyness prompted this analytical ability that I have. It like primed this muscle, which by the time I got into high school, I just knew I never took any psychology course. I just knew that I was going to study psychology. And I read a few books in high school about it. And I just fell in love, and I fell in love with the subject. And so my shyness in starting a year late created this sense of deficiency that created this desire to want to understand human behavior. And that is a driving force for me, especially when I was shy. Like this thing right here, like has been created. Like my voice, I've created this voice. I know there's innate natural pitches, which I can actually get into as a practical thing for the people here. So we have natural pitches, but we also have our voices has been socially modeled by people, by our parents, by our teachers. And our parents have been influenced by their professions, which reflect why my mom's more outspoken as a teacher than my dad as a social worker that was on the computer trying to get funding for social services. So knowing that it's about finding and creating your voice is something that was started from a deficiency growing up. And that has been my fire.
Talk about turning a barrier into a success breakthrough. And I mean, you've created this creative, just powerful self-expression, and turned it into a business. How incredible! How incredible! So there was, and you spoke about that being your driving force, which is incredible. So you've got your driving force. You've created this. You knew right at the outset what you were going to do, which is incredible for any youngster to actually know where they were going to go. And then for a time before you got into this business, you were working with children with autism.
That's correct. 8 years.
Yeah, and empowering them to socialize and live more independently. Gavin, that must have left some really meaningful imprints on you. Tell us about that.
You want to get into that? You did your research, Carmen. I appreciate this. You really did. And so social services, that's something I got into right after I graduated. My dad was in social services. I worked in an ABA agency, applied behavioral analysis, got promoted into called the senior behaviorist. And so basically what I was doing there is I was training the new employees on how do you put ABA and how do you work with these different kids. And then I was also had a client list of a few kids that I worked with, anywhere from 4 to 18 years of age. When I first got into it, I loved it because I didn't realize how much I love kids. Like I love children. They're like some of the greatest teachers in their energy, in their curiosity. And so it's just, I can't get as deep with the kids or just have these really dope philosophical conversations, but they remind me of something so simplistic, right? But profound, just of like never always remember that some people say curiosity kills the cat, but curiosity can also give birth to new worlds. Be curious, explore the things that fascinate you or even mildly interest you, because you never know where that can go or who you can meet in the process. Mm-hmm. So I learned to develop also in this job. It is difficult. Like these children, it depends on where they are on the spectrum. Some of them are very severe. And some of them, I worked with a kid that couldn't talk at all. right? And I can only imagine how difficult it would be for him, that he wants to express something and he's angry, but he doesn't know how to do that. And so he'll hit himself, right? And there's different kinds of behaviors. It's called self-stimulatory behaviors, where they do things as coping mechanisms. Like as humans, we still do it. Like we'll do this. Oh, I'm stressed. So we touch ourselves as a way to cope and try to relax ourselves, which is actually really effective. So they have these different behaviors that we want to kind of like modify, since it could be disruptive or prevent them from really focusing in class, for instance. So I learned to develop empathy for the children, also empathy for the families, because I worked with these kids both at home and in schools. I worked with all different types of families, foster families. I've worked with single mothers with 2 kids who are on the spectrum, the dad who's just not really there, ones who are really well off in the Palisades, and they, in a way, would just pay for all the services, but they didn't have the skills themselves. So there was a cap to that. And it's just learning how do you be flexible with it, and knowing that I'm not the parent. I can talk to them as best I can. But there was a limitation to that. So I learned about empathy. I learned about curiosity. And also I love training. Like I love training the new employees. And then, so, some of the supervisors just said, like, you're one of the best in the agency. And it's like, cause I loved it. I don't know. It's just, every time you work with the kids, or it's just training them, it's just like, you see what we're doing right here? They're feeding off of our energy. You may not feel good. You're the leader here, though. You have to put whatever it is that you're going with your girlfriend aside or your boyfriend aside here for the kid, because they don't even understand it, but you are leading your energy. You're leading this energy. So you have to know where you have know that you're the change agent, the generator. So everything that I was teaching the new employees was about how they're carrying themselves in life, right? And I love that. That was one of my favorite parts of the work, was actually training.
Amazing. And how that again shaped what was to come.
100%. Yeah.
Coach now in one-to-one and groups, and you have membership settings. So it's just incredible how your life has sort of just catapulted you into the next phase each time, and given you another pearl to work with.
Yes.
So Gavin, you speak about turning pain into purpose. Tell us about the meaning of struggle or sting in life, and how we can turn that struggle into success or pain into purpose. How have you managed to do that?
Yeah. So there's different points in my life. I was a contributing author to this book, and I'll just use this as a preface. It was called Ignite Your Life for Men. And basically they had a concept in there that I really think could be useful. And it's called an ignite moment. An ignite moment, for those of you listening, is essentially, it's a moment in time where something took place. And based on that stimulus, if you want to call it that, you made a decision. You thought something that changed the trajectory of your life. And so, the best way that I can say it is just looking into my experience is, oh, wow. This is actually one of my favorite stories, because it's so visual. That, speaking of Peter Evenson, for instance, right before we were going to culminate, right? They call it culmination. We were going from 5th grade to 6th grade in the US. We had to do a play. It was called Lucy Whipple. Everyone had to play a role. And I really wanted to be the main role. His name was Mr. Scatter. He owned a general store. It was about this prairie family, and then just like the dynamics of how they interact with the people in their little town. I wanted to be the general store guy. Everyone came to him for everything. But I didn't have the balls. I didn't have the cojones to actually take the role. And you know who took it? Peter Evenson, the most popular kid in school. And I ended up doing what I knew best. We tend to fall into what's familiar to us if we, aren't conscious of what we're doing, just going to old habits. I ended up being stage crew. All right. And so this is getting a long story, but basically what I do is, at home, we all had the script. I was always the parentheses, move the vase, move the cardboard bed, all these things. But I would look at Mr. Scatter's lines and I would study them because I wanted that role. And even to this day, I still remember one of the lines, which is a rhyme. So even early on, I love the rhyme. And just to do this quick one, the line was, beans and bacon, fish in cans, barrels of flour, sacks of yams, raisins, rice, or pork and such, woods and cotton soft to touch. Tubs and buckets, pots and pans, gullets from the fairer lands, cakes and whiskey, candy treats, picks and shovels, pickled beets. We take credit, coins and dust, come to scatters, a store to trust. 12 years old, right? 12 years old. I'm 33 right now. It's 21 years. It's not like I practice that every day, but that's how much I wanted that role, right? So that thing, I look at that now and that became like a fire where it's just, hey, you know what? Like, and thinking about my sister, my brother, like they're smarter than me. I don't know how I compete with them intellectually, but I have to find a way to actually differentiate myself. Maybe it's the middle child syndrome or something. And so I'm like, okay, socially and emotionally, I'm going to really put effort into this. So it's just like kind of creating my own avenue in order to separate myself from my siblings as well. I just use that as a fire. Just like there's another way. There's another way. And this is the slippery slope around that. I was trying to use that as a way to achieve one of the 6 human needs in human needs psychology, with significance. I wanted to be significant and to stand out. That's not necessarily a winning formula if you're doing everything just to get this external validation. So there was faults into that. But what it gave me this thing of a fire to actually move towards and improve myself. And so now it's shifted more to now connection, contribution, and growth are more of my driving forces. And significance is still there, though. It is. I acknowledge that was really the driving force before. So, I think it's a constant evolution, but it's just like questions. It's just the questions where I don't even know what question I asked myself, but it probably back then was like, how do I differentiate myself, right? How do I differentiate myself to get more attention? That was probably it, right? But it was a North Star. It gave me something to move towards. And then the questions eventually started to probably improve. Like, how can I actually contribute on a higher level, right? How can I be more fulfilled? So the evolution of questions are so powerful.
And can turn the pain into purposeful in the most dramatic ways and purposeful ways, which you've done so beautifully throughout your life. And talk about differentiation. Okay, so you're a flow and mindset coach. So flow as in FLOW, flow and mindset coach. Everything about what you do is different. So let's start there. Tell us more about what you do specifically.
Yes. So I work primarily called like minority, marginalized voices. They're professionals. They usually have a job. And there's something here where like they held themselves back, whether it was culturally from family conditioning or things where they want to express themselves more. They want to share themselves more at team meetings. They want to express, and they've been meaning to start a YouTube channel or something to express their side passion that they have that they can't satiate through their work. But they talk themselves out of it. Like, humans, we might tend to do if we're afraid of being judged, which is an evolutionary thing. We want to be accepted, and that can be at the expense of our fulfillment. And I work with them. I work with them specifically around their voice. Like that's my biggest passion, is just how people can transform their lives through their voice. And so I do they're quite unconventional synthesized exercises that I've gotten through my time mentoring over half a decade in Toastmasters, to all of my facilitation work, to my coaching work. And I blend it all together along with freestyle extemporaneous expression, because there you really have to trust yourself to get to that stream of consciousness. So flow and voice, to me, they go hand in hand. And that's who I work with, though like it's almost like the underserved and marginalized too, because actually after I pivoted my messaging, I signed on 2 clients, my first international from Ireland, and then one who's actually an influencer on Instagram. And they are not minorities if you see them face value, but they marginalize their own voices. They trump their own voices. So I also look at it that way. I don't just like, oh, you only have to be a person of color, but it's some shape or form. You're stifling yourself, and let's deconstruct that. And let's add power to your voice by exploring the 5 building blocks. And that is my life's work right now.
Awesome. And so what are those 5 building blocks?
Yeah. So the 5 building blocks, this was really inspired by the work of Roger Love. He's one of the most renowned speaking and voice coaches. And what he's found is essentially speaking and singing are very similar. They're similar in the instrument that comes out of it. And he likens it actually to an analogy of a piano. A piano has how many keys, Carmen?
Oh, hell. And I mean, I used to play piano and I have.
Okay, it's okay. I wanted to bring a little interaction here since I could get into monologue. It was 88 keys, right? 88 keys, that's a lot of keys. You want to go to performance and just watch people play 2 keys. You want to see the range of it. Our voice, when we're speaking too, we have the potential for 88 keys. But a lot of us, we have default ways of being, default behaviors, pressing the snooze button, whatever you want to call it. Same with our voice. A lot of us have maybe between 2 to 5 keys that we use. 5 if we're really lucky, actually. Some of us actually have 2 primary ones. One is when things are going as they normally do. And then this could be called monotone, but then they get excited, then they get angry, and then they get in a higher place, but that takes a lot of energy. And then once they release it, they go back to their normal voice, right? And so we have 88 keys. And that's what I find so brilliant about the 5 building blocks. One of the building blocks is pace. It's just how fast are you really going to talk when you want to express something? Maybe you do this when you're naturally really excited, but when you want to emphasize a point, you can slow down a little bit. Right? And then we have volume. Then we can do volume. Like, are you taking a stand for something? Do you want to be loud for something? If you're not willing to shout out your mission, why should anybody listen? Or if you want to get a little bit quiet and allow people to kind of lean in a little more, right? It's a little more intimate. Hey, come around the campfire with me, and let's tell. Let me tell you a little story right before you go to sleep, right? And this is good in guided meditations too. So, and then you also have pitch. You have a high pitch and you have a low pitch. This is actually fun. This is an interesting one that's been blowing some of my clients this week. I've been introducing this. So this is called finding your natural pitch. So Roger Love, actually, I learned this exercise through him. So basically you take your 3 fingers, y'all. All right. And to preface this is that we have a default pitch of our voice that may not be our natural pitch. Our default pitch could just be what our our mood has been consistently. And so for consistently operating, let's just say I call it a level 1 in my coaching modality, but it's more of like there could be apathetic here or self-pity where it's a lower energy. You may not talk like this if you're coming from a more of a victimized place. Is that natural? That's just your default way based on your mood. So you take these 3 fingers and you put them like right where your rib cage intersects, and you're going to push as you say, hey, at the same pitch, like, hey. You see how it goes up a little bit? Hey. Now we want to match our talking to that upper one. Hey, 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 hey. How's it going, y'all? Konnichiwa, konnichiwa, beautiful lovelies. My name's Gavin. I love flow. I love mindset. I love voice. You see how there's like a power to this voice right here? And there's not taking any effort because I'm also breathing from my diaphragm. That's a different story. But here, hey, 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 what's going on? And there's a crispiness to it. So that's something that you can take with you. And what you might find is how you normally talk is not actually your natural pitch. And so that's another building block that we have. Another one, if you have any questions that come, but let me know. Another one's tone. I love this one. This was like my favorite one for a while. So tone, there's like a spectrum to it. So on the lower end, we have air. Air is kind of like where the words kind of like go together. This is great. Also, spiritual people do this. Just like imagine the breeze or take a breath in. Guided meditations will use a lot of air. It's very intimate. Now, that could also put somebody to sleep. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. So this doesn't mean this is worse than edge, right? It just lets us know we have 88 keys. We have different tones. So we have air, but then we have edge. Now it's more abrupt. You're taking a stand. You know what? I don't like that. I didn't like what you actually did right there. It kind of hurt my feelings. Mixing the air and the edge. One's not necessarily better than the other, once again. But when we know that, we can explore it. And when we explore edge, people that might be a little softer, they experience themselves like, whoa. And then now they have to reconcile, like, does that mean, or they have to reconcile, is this, oh, well, my dad was kind of like angry. I don't like to use that tone. Oh, okay. So now we have to deconstruct some things right here, because that doesn't necessarily mean that you're angry or you're attacking somebody. That's based on your preconceived notions of your father, right? So it's a mindset thing. Using the 5 building blocks brings up different things for people. And the more we sift through that, the more breakthroughs there are. And then they can start to experience like, whoa, actually this edge feels powerful. And I realized I could be edgy and loving. Oh, now we're getting into the nuances of tonality. You could have passionate, edgy tone. You can have loving, edgy tone. You can have really fiery, angry, edgy tone. And it's like, wow, there are gradients to this. You see this? This is becoming an art form. And so, yeah, melody, talking into different types of melodies too. And just seeing where that can go. And that sparks different types of feelings. So those are the 5, right? Pitch, pace, volume, tone, and melody.
I love it. I love it. And as a transformational, I mean, you started out saying that you use voice for personal transformation. And it seems like, there's part of your brain that goes, how do you do that? But just you talking about these 5 building blocks and the way in which you've demonstrated it, and what comes through, your resistances that come through as you take people through those building blocks and what you can uncover, that's incredible, because so we have this tool that is so underutilized, and we're not even realizing that we're using 4 or 5 of the 88 keys. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah, it is. It's just amazing. And I didn't like come up with these things. I'm learning from I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, but like, it's just, you can see even me going through the building blocks, like my energy's like a little higher. And that's the thing. Like, I just had a session with a client yesterday. Monday. And I showed him the natural pitch, and like he normally has like a lower voice right here. And when I showed him that, and he was like, hey, whoa. And he was like, his mind was like, whoa, I haven't heard of this voice before. I mean, sometimes when I sing, but whoa, it's like crispy. And I'm like, tell me what's going on in your mind? He's like, it's clear. Like, I'm not even second guessing myself. Do you notice how your voice is more powerful? Yeah. How are you feeling? Whoa, I'm feeling empowered, present. And he just felt like there was a transformation, like before, like our eyes is like, whoa, just like that. Our voice triggers, it's different vibrations, it's different frequencies, right? They talk about like you operate at different frequencies. When we tap into these different sounds, we have different subjective associations with it, right? Too, that can alter the way that we feel and the things that we think. Our voice, we can use our voice to transform the way that we feel. And sometimes it doesn't seem natural at first, but that's like anything. Like you when you were first doing a podcast, was it supernatural? You developed an acumen for it. You developed a skill for it, just like anything. So I can get into the whole flow cycle too. Like, struggle is the first part of the flow cycle. That's really important, because there's something called a skills challenge ratio. And we need a little bit of struggle, because if something is not hard enough for a long period of time and your skill is just way too much, what happens? You might get bored. Like, you might just not have to give 100%. Then if something's way too hard for too long, it gets frustrating. It might not be eustress, it turns to distress. And so we want that sweet medium where our skill is actually a little lower than the challenge at hand. And when we do, it becomes positively reinforcing. I'm starting to get the hang of it. And you can get into the second phase, which is release. Parasympathetic nervous system. Heart rate slows down a little bit. And when we relax, we judge ourselves less. And then we get into flow state, an optimal state of consciousness where we feel our best, we do our best. The 7 prime neurochemicals come into our brain that we can't synthetically manufacture, y'all. That's what's so powerful about it, is that it's the most perfect harmony and dance of oxytocin, dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin. All of these are pumping at your brain at the same time. And that gives you this thing called transient hypofrontality, where our prefrontal cortex shuts off and we're left with that stream of consciousness. And that's what I want people to get to. And when I can record it, when you can record it and people can look back at them being in flow, since we don't always remember what we are in flow, but we can remember how we feel, like the Maya Angelou quote, when we get into that place, it's like people can witness their own transformation.
Gavin, tell me, so you've given us the phases of flow. Let's backtrack a little bit. And two things. If you could define flow for us, and then show how are you using voice to create the flow state.
Great. So the definition that Stephen Kotler, he's one of the leading edge researchers and advocates of flow, he calls it an optimal state of consciousness where we feel our best and we do our best. This definition was also helped coined by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who helped to popularize positive psychology. And he actually brought in the flow. He introduced flow to the world more so. So that's what it is, an optimal state of consciousness where we feel our best and we do our best. Hence, there's the correlation between performance and being in flow. Now, the other question was, how do I bring flow through voice? Very good question. So although we're not going to probably do a clear demonstration here with the music, I use music. I use soundscape. I use lo-fi. These two beats are really powerful because they're subtle. They're very simple. They're not overpowering. That means that people don't have to think they have to get into a rhyme. It just creates a little bit of an ambiance so that we can speak from that place. And I have different prompts that I do for people depending on where they are. I have a little toolbox of exercises on it. And really, like, it's teaching people some of the fundamentals of, like, hey, y'all, we create meaning. That's a big part of our life experience, is our ability to create meaning. Like Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, the clinical psychologist that was in Auschwitz, he coined the thing logotherapy, which is all about, even under the grimace of circumstances, you can find a meaning for your life. You can have hope for your life. And so I do that. One of my exercises is through the metaphor game. The metaphor game that you probably saw a little bit, Carmen, is all inspired by Forrest Gump. That Mama always said that life is like a box of chocolates.
Yeah,
you never know what you're going to get. That's the most popular, like one of the most popular quotes in that movie. One of my favorite movies, by the way. And this is, they didn't have anything in a movie like this, but I imagined a conversation if she was going to break that down to Forrest, if you didn't understand it, like, Forrest, sometimes in life you can plan and it still may not go as planned. And that can stop a lot of people. They can overanalyze and just, they maybe want to do something, but they're like, you know what, maybe that's not going to happen. And stop. And you can be that person. Or you can be like, you know what? I'm just going to open up this box and I'm going to try for myself to see what it is. Life is like a box of chocolates, right? Now, she created a meaning of this arbitrary noun, a box of chocolates. And that's really powerful because a lot of what we do, Carmen, and for everyone, is we're looking at stuff and we're making stuff mean stuff. Oh, this person said no. I guess I'm stupid. I guess I'm not pretty. Oh, they said yes? Oh, I guess I'm pretty cool. Either way, you're creating meaning. And a lot of these are preconceptive notions too, that are just, some of these triggers that are having very little to do with now and in the past. So the metaphor game is life is like a noun. And with the music, it's just trusting it. You're not going to have it all figured out. Just know that life is like a coffee mug. In this coffee mug, you can fill it up with anything you want. They call it a coffee mug. I put green tea in it this morning. I can put water in it. I could put ice in it to make it cold when it's initially supposed to be hot. I mold this to make this coffee mug how I want it. I also put coffee in there as well when I want that little extra boost. You see in life, we try to things in society, or you look at the media, they might box certain things in, that some things have to look a certain way, or certain stances have to believe certain types of things. And if you're not, then you're not with us. And there's a tendency to want to comply to that. But you see, in a coffee mug, you can put whatever it is that you want in there. And some people may not agree with it. And that's a part of learning to really live into your voice and what you really want to share. So life is truly like a coffee mug. What are you going to put in it? All right.
Wow.
So now it's people stumble. They may not get in flow at first, right? But this whole thing, they don't say this inside of science because trust, right? Like trust, not in science. But what I see about flow is when you can get to that place where there's 4 things that happen: selflessness, timelessness, effortlessness, and a richness in your sensory experience. When you get to that point, you are fully trusting yourself. You are fully trusting yourself to know that whatever's coming out of your mouth is perfect. It is supposed to happen, And from that place, some of the most magical things happen. I've done this with my dad. I've done this with my mom. I've done this with my friend and his younger daughter, and inside of churches. Like, it is amazing. And it's like people realize like they have a way of infusing their story and what they believe inside of something creative like this metaphor game. I mean, I can go on and on about different exercises, but that's just one of them. There's always a deeper meaning inside of these exercises. And it lets people know that may not see themselves as creative, like, you actually are very creative. You actually are very creative. You've just been judging yourself a lot, saying that you aren't. You've been trying to put coffee in a coffee mug and nothing else.
Oh, Gavin, I love this. I love this. I mean, there's so many people that will be listening to this and watching this and thinking, oh my God, I've got this powerful thing here.
Oh,
for my whole life, I've been holding back and I haven't said what I wanted to say. And I'm not as creative as I want to be. And, there's just, it's so powerful what you're saying, because so many people don't have a voice or hold themselves back or, leave a meeting and go, why did I not say what I needed to say? Or, lose a loved one and they hadn't said what they wanted to say to that person. Or it's, wow. So this to me it's beautiful because it's so accessible. It's just even knowing that there's power in our voice, that there's transformation opportunity through our voice, and that through just a few different things. I mean, after watching a few of your videos, I swear to you, I was sitting outside on my patio trying some rapping.
Yes. Oh, yes.
I mean, and I never did that before. I've never tried something like that before.
Right.
I was having real fun with it. So thank you. Thank you for bringing this to us and differentiating yourself and having those experiences when you were young to call for this action to be different. So thank you. Thank you for that. Give us, Gavin, a few experiences or things that we could do by ourselves as an exercise to start expressing ourselves more, to try this box of chocolates that we have right here.
Great question. The first one, I'll just reiterate because repetition is the language of the brain. The first one is the finding your natural pitch. Taking those three fingers where your ribcage intersects. Hey, hi. Get used to this. Start talking like, hi, what are you going to do today? Well, after I talk to Carmen, I'm going to meditate with my mother, and then I'm going to have a call with Sable, and then I'm going to be at this networking event. I'm actually really excited about it. We're using a new platform. Like, get used to this natural pitch and see how it feels in your body. Do the crispiness of it. That's one of the things, okay? One is find your natural pitch through the three fingers where your ribcage intersects. Very practical. The second one is, as you're doing it, kill two birds with one stone. Record yourself just talking naturally, like your default, and then go into the natural pitch and see a before and after. Why say this too? A lot of people have fears around the video. I did too. And in certain times, if I go live, I do too, because it's like, this is all right there in the moment. Now, with the value of video is that it is the only time that we know now where you can see yourself, observe yourself in motion as if you are another person. You can't do that in real life. You can't do that when you're venturing because you're seeing yourself as lived. And that's a very subjective experience. And now when you have to look at yourself and be like, oh, that voice is nasty. Like, you have to reconcile with that. You have to reconcile. That is very powerful to look through. Like, when you get to a point where you could see yourself as if you're another person, that video coaching, that video that you see of yourself can be a tremendous self-awareness tool. I think it's one of the most underutilized self-awareness tools out there, actually. And so record yourself and see yourself. You're going to find idiosyncrasies that you do, how you rub your neck as a self-soothing mechanism, or how you click. I used to click when I was public speaking in the beginning. I had no idea. Or I would do this, which can be a closed off kind of body language. You really see a lot of yourself that you just don't know what you don't know until you see yourself on video, and then you know. So that's number two. And the last one I'll say is sometimes we get caught up with the words. Like we have to find the right words, and that really can mess things up, especially when you're trying to actually get into a flow and release. I like to say that to release is to receive. And we can harbor a lot of things. We can shove things under the carpet, or unfulfilled expectations, stored in intentions, miscommunications, and we just harbor it, and it turns into resentment. Like resentment, ooh, that's a really toxic, that could be a very toxic emotion. Actually, Jordan Peterson says it's one of the most toxic emotions that we have. And so with that, I do something called energetic release, and this is through scatting. You could do it with music or without, and you're basically making unintelligible noises with your mouth, but focusing also on the emotion that you want to release. So let's just say it's anger, for instance. And I'll let you know, this might get a little intense, everybody, but this is just an example. Like, okay, anger, right? Why was your work? Why you want go? Why? Oh, Lamon, my job for the Bayashina, Koya, Basa, Katebosha, Bojo, 4.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
That was intense, right? Like, you don't know what I said, but could you feel like there was some anger there?
Yeah.
Yes. And like for me, I feel lighter now. And to actually make this practical for people is like I had a perspective session actually here pre-quarantine with this girl, and she was holding a lot of things with the boss. If you have any micromanaging bosses or people that are just like breathing over your neck, whether they're family members and stuff, she was harboring it, but she made herself feel wrong for being angry. So I said, you know what? I'm going to set a timer for 3 minutes. I want you to complain. I want you to be a victim. I want you to get into your anger, and I want to see you really unleash. And we did it one time. It's like on a scale from 1 to 10. This is a very powerful coaching thing to quantify subjective experiences. On a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being not at all, 10 being totally released it. Where are you at? Like a 6. Let's get to an 8. Let's really allow yourself to get to an 8. So coach would be like, more, get more angry. And then at the end, we stopped, like take a breath in, acknowledge whatever's going up into your body and breathe into it. Good. Yeah. Relax into that anger. Good. How do you feel? I feel lighter. I feel more neutral. I'm like, great. Yeah, that's right. Allow yourself to be that way. You release the anger. That's so awesome. And from there, I start now from a more neutral place. Now we can create from it, not fix. Now we can create. She's more neutral. It's like, what do you think your boss is going through right now? And she started getting into it. Well, she's going through a hard time. She just got broken up with. She just da. Now I'm creating a question that promotes empathy. I wouldn't have opened up with that question because she was more into that blame. That wouldn't have fit. But when we could release the emotions, it's not good or bad. And then we can start to create, not fix, once we release. To release is to receive. And one of the powerful things is afterwards, she's like, wow, Gavin, she was Asian American. This is the first time that somebody ever made me feel that being angry, it's okay. It's okay to be angry. And I just see that as a lesson because even the clients that I work with, they make their anger wrong. They put morality to anger because they've seen how they've overreacted their parents have, and they cast their judgment on that. And therefore they don't allow themselves to experience anger. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. And you don't have to take anger out on another person. You can just scat it out. Like find other ways to release it and come from that neutral place where you can ask yourself a higher quality, open-ended question. And yeah, so those are the 3, right? What did I say? I said first is the natural pitch. Find it with the 3 rib cages. Right? It's using video to see the before and after, knowing that it's a huge self-awareness tool. And the last one is to release, let out the release valve through scatting.
Fantastic. I felt better after you did your thing.
Did you?
Came down and like, wow, I'm calm now.
Whoa. Yes. Yes, that's what we find inside of FlowFam is that other people, as they express themselves, there's a cathartic release in other people's experience of them. Because I have a really big emphasis on empathy. It's the second principle in FlowFam called Rally the Cipher. And Rally the Cipher is that whoever's speaking, we want them to get into flow. What that means is they're no longer judging themselves. So let's think about us that as we are the space holders, where Where might we be casting judgments, right? We're holding a space that whatever's coming at us, we can take it and they're safe. Okay. And so I'm all constantly promoting empathy. And I think that's it's really powerful. And it's cathartic, it's therapeutic, even though you're not the one speaking it. Yeah.
I love this. I love it, love it, love it. Tell us about the words. So you've given us a lot about the power of the voice. But what about the energy behind our words and the actual words? Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. So I'm a big proponent. Find Your Edge is one of my signature programs. And the first one's called Energetic Release. I kind of alluded to that inside of the second recommendation I had, or the one through scat, the third one I said through scatting it's not about the words as much as it's about the release. Now, for instance, if we're going to take a sentence, take any sentence, let's just say, how are you doing? Okay. Let's just say, how are you doing? It's so simple, right? It's a question. You can kind of tell when people are saying, how are you doing, just as a formality. They don't really care. Mm-hmm. And that's revealed through the 5 building blocks, right? And through how you know about that person. Yo, how you doing, man? Right? It could look like that, or it could be like, yo, how you doing? But they're actually looking at their phone. They don't really care. It's just a formality. They're probably just saying hi to you, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Short talk could be very valuable. So it's understanding what is the motive for how you're doing. Do you really want to know? Do I really want to know how Carmen's doing? Because if I really did, then it would be reflective in my emotional congruity. Like, how you doing, Carmen?
I'm great, Gavin.
It's great. What's so great right now?
I'm talking to you.
Yes. So we're not going to have a whole long-winded thing, but did you kind of get how you doing? That I want to know how you're doing. Like, I just don't want it to be like, good. How you doing? Like I'm inviting like whatever's going to come up. Now, I may not always do that because I'm pressed for time, right? So it's for the person to be clear on their motives. And so when I would do also coach people more on the public speaking when they're in person and stuff too, I would really hone in on what emotions are you really trying to convey? Because in order for another person to experience it, you have to experience it, right? It's like this whole thing, to inspire or be inspired. Be inspired. And by the byproduct is you're inspired. You're coming from a place of inspired. Same with setting goals. You want to have goals inspired. You need to be inspired when you're setting these goals. No, just choose that as a way of fixing. It's like these goals are going to excite you. Meditate beforehand. Get into the place so that the frequency is actually being carried when you're writing it. And so I'm I'll do this thing called the conductor. It's one of my inside exercises, right? And this conductor exercise too, my buddy does that. He's a very illustrious speaking coach. Is basically, let's just take passion, the word passion. And I'm like, Carmen, what are you passionate about? Now, how this works is I have this right here. So for those of you who are just listening to this probably, is I have my hand right in the center. And if I raise it based on your metrics on what more passionate would look like, is you would go up as you're talking, right? We might start off with scat since you don't have to worry about the words yet. What I go? What's your vote? What I gotta go? And you would see what your own preconceptions of what more passionate is. People might like Tony Robbins and see it's more intense, more louder, or some people might actually see it as in the substance they talk about. Now, as you get lower, it's not that the passion is less necessarily. It's just it's a different gradient. It's a different gradient of passion. Where if you're going to go lower, the passion is still there. And maybe just the volume is less, but you can still feel it. And so from this exercise, I'm teaching people to experience the different gradients of passion. It does not have to look like Tony Robbins only. It can look like Jack Canfield. It can look really like Les Brown. It could look like Kobe, who's very stoic, right? Rest in peace. And so it's just, your passion is not one-dimensional. You're very multidimensional, and we can do that via the conductor. And at the end of the day, once we do this, you are the conductor of your passion. And know that it does not have to look one way.
So good. So good. So what I love about this is we so often get so beat up about, what am I going to say? What
right.
use, or if you have to make a speech, it's like you freak out about the words. But what you're saying is bring the energy, create an energy, create what is the motive, and go with that, flow with that. Because if you've got the energy and the intent right, the words will probably just filter through naturally. And so it's a wonderful natural way to come from.
It is. And they're definitely more when get higher level on like choosing more visually descriptive words, for instance, right? So there's higher level things. And if we're just going to pick nice words and we don't really feel it, they're empty platitudes. So much better for me. It's just one of the a quote that I like is that your energy introduces you before you even have to speak. And so before even when I would speak in person and stuff, like I always pause in the beginning. What's going on, everybody? I'm Gavin, right? It's just like, boom. I'm here. I don't have to I'm here. I'm going to get the attention before I even have to speak.
Very powerful.
How's everybody doing? Right? It's the power pause entrance, I call it, right? So just knowing that where you're coming from energetically, it makes a difference. Like there's this word vibe. I've been on this whole thing about vibe. Like sometimes I just got into you, Carmen, when we talked, I'm like, Carmen got a nice vibe. I can kind of find adjectives to describe it, but it's just like, so there's certain people that you really vibe with and other people that's a little harder. And maybe you have to work through projections and stuff, but there's other people that just maybe you don't vibe with as well. And it could just be based on their perspective and their attitude and all of their experiences too. So that's something that we can take with us as far as where energetically, where are we coming from? Are you really excited about this talk? And if you're nervous, that's great. Physiologically, it's very similar to being excited right there. Maybe you're nervous because this is something that's really important to you, Gavin, to be on this podcast, right? And so this is great. How does this tap into your higher purpose? And so that will give me nuances in my expression in ways that I can't strategize. When you're genuinely excited, you will nuancely have micro expressions of crow's feet of like maybe this. When I get really excited, I'll be like this, I'll lean forward more. I'm not even trying to do that. It's just I'm excited. And so, yeah, anything that we can do to prime ourselves to get into that state, like Tony Robbins talks about, state is the most important thing. Physiology is the fastest way to change your state. He does that across countries, across the world, regardless of culture, getting into the right state. And that's essentially what I'm doing, helping people get into the state. And let's speak from that place, get accustomed to your nervous system, getting used to it. And then from there, let's hone the words. How can you, instead of saying angry, how can you maybe use a descriptor? I was so over the edge when he said that. When he said that, you can see that over the edge, like you're looking over a cliff versus you're angry. You can't really visualize anything. Let's get into visual descriptors. So, there's higher level things. Getting to the energy first I think this is fundamental.
Super powerful. You speak about getting messy.
Yes.
Why should we get messy? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, that was the name of my webinar. And I'll tell you, getting messy is, I can illustrate inside of an anecdote, but getting messy is a great way. Sometimes we can walk around like humans and act like we need permission to be ourselves, right? And there's certain situations in corporate or depending on where you are, where you wouldn't fully express how you really felt. If you're really being honest and unfiltered, you'd be a little more pragmatic about this. So for sure, I'm not taking away from that piece right there. But as far as, sorry, Carmen, what was that question again that you just said?
That you mentioned that we should get messy. So why should we get messy? Yes.
Get messy is that for some, like what I found in my experience, it makes people feel like they actually have permission to try something new. And so inside of FlowFam, for instance, I always lead by example. I'd be like, I'll lead the scat, and I'll do that as a way. And I'm going to be over the top about it to be like, do you see how foolish I'm being right here? Do you see how it is? You can be this too, or you feel free to go outside your comfort zone. And just through that, people experience themselves oftentimes in ways they never have before. And it's so freeing for them to see that sometimes I'll get things after, I reached out to my dad the next day and I just said, I love you. Or I went and I talked to this girl that I've been liking for a while and I just polarized her really quickly and she was actually receptive to it. Or other times, or she wasn't, but I went up to her, and it's just flow. It just has a way of the courage capacity expands in life when we can do that. So getting messy, you learn a lot. If you go through action, you're getting messy through action. And then you take the time, whether it's through coaching or whether it's through your journaling reflection, to evaluate, action, evaluate, action, evaluate. Getting messy, you learn so fast because you're getting the feedback. And you have to reconcile. I just love that word. It's just like you have to learn how to deal with it not looking the way that you had wanted to. But like you get the feedback directly. And I just think it's so powerful to get messy. And to illustrate something, Carmen, as a final thing, we might be approaching time soon, is I gave a speech one time. Let's see, which one do I want to talk about right now? They're both really great. So let me talk about this one. So this one, I gave a speech one time. I had a whole thing prepared, but then this is the first time I was seeing a therapist because I was going through some really kind of like icky things with my self-esteem inside of my first interracial relationship a couple years ago. And rather than the speech that I was going to give, it just wasn't resonating. So I just off the cuff said one about like, I just wanted to give a speech. This is what's going on. This is what's going on with me. I talked about the therapist. I kept it confidential. I didn't use names or anything. But I'm still figuring it out right now. And I don't really know what my purpose of this speech is, to be honest. But thank you for listening. And if you're going through something hard, I want you to know, like, hey, you're not alone. Then afterwards, there was a guest that was there. We had table topics. That's the impromptu speaking part. She came up and then she kind of like looked at me. And then she's like, I woke up today and I had thought that maybe you're better off dead. Now I've had this thought before. This one was a little heavier. And so I knew I had to do something. So I went on meetup.com and I was trying to find a way to get outside of my head. And some of the quickest ways is by being in connection with other people. And I was on Meetup and I found Coach Masters in Marina Del Rey. Hey, why not give this a try? It's just 0.4 miles away. And I didn't know why I was going there. And then she looked at me and now I do. Thank you. And, it's just like moments like that where, man, I was expecting like a really vulnerable spot, like my first time ever seeing a therapist. And what the heck did I know? It then inspired this guest who didn't know anybody there to speak up and talk about her suicide. Everyone was coming up and giving her accolades after. I hugged her afterwards. Thank you for that. And it's just like I was getting messy. And I think that, do your due diligence. Like, you don't just get messy as an emotional vomit kind of thing, right? That was a space where I knew that would be safe and revered in that way. And vulnerability is not always going to be accepted. But when we can have those safe spaces like FlowFam, for instance, to express that, you realize that your mess is truly a message for other people to live into themselves more. And your story and what you have to share is a contribution in and of itself.
What I also like about what you're saying is, in a way I'm seeing the messy bit, is we hold back because we're so concerned about how it's going to come through and how other people are going to judge you or think about you, or you haven't thought it through yet. You don't know what the perfect words are, so you rather hold back. What I'm loving about what you're saying is get messy. It's okay. It's far better to voice it and be real, so authentic, and just let it come through, no matter what it is, how it comes through. If the energy is there and the intent is there, you will be heard, no matter how it comes through. And that's very powerful for people to really take courage in being able to be messy. It's not about being human, is not about being perfect. We're perfectly imperfect as humans. So, and this is why I loved when I saw that. I really loved this idea of get messy, because it's the striving to be perfect that holds us back so much. And particularly what we say, which holds people back from being just who they are and what they are and their true potential. Oh, thank you, Gavin, for that. It's really such powerful stuff you're sharing with us.
Yes.
2 more things.
Sure.
The take back our human. This show is about bringing humanity back to business, and you talk about take back our human. Why is that so important to you?
Wow. Yeah, that was actually my first signature program that I created too in this 8-week journey into really deconstructing what does it mean to really be a human and the best human that you can be. And so I think that's really important. I have an invisible cabinet. If anyone's familiar with Think and Grow Rich, Dalai Lama is one of my invisible counselors. And so I just think about him like being in a room with other prime ministers and presidents and whatnot, and like they're all arguing, and he just will raise his hand quietly. He might raise his hand for 30 minutes and people don't see him until afterwards, like, oh, do you have something to say? And he's like, well, what I see is that we're all have beliefs and we're all human. And that's his thing where he's like, people call me the His Holiness. I didn't get that name, but if they want to call me that silly name, then so be it. But I just see like I'm a human, and whenever I'm around other humans, that's how I see them. We're all humans. And so when we can connect to that thread, there's a lot of divisiveness, people with different beliefs, red, blue, whatever you want to call it. And it's okay to actually have healthy disagreements about things and to agree to disagree. It's just to know that underneath it, what I'm finding in FlowFam, we all have disappointments. We all have unfulfilled expectations. We all have people in our life that we love, some of which we might hate that we love them so much. And some things that we prefer not to fully address. And when there's a space created for that, you just realize we're so connected. There's beauty in our blemishes. And it opens up a door for deeper self-awareness and deeper self-love, which is such an overused word. Well, when you could say that some of our deepest insecurities can actually be accepted and other people can see a piece of their insecurities inside of your expression of it, that does something to one's self-esteem. Like, I'm not alone. Wow. Thing that I've been hiding is actually, they get to release it more because they use an insecurity now becomes a source of connection. Now, not necessarily misery loves company. That's not how I'm going to facilitate the space. It's just going to be a connecting point to then be able to create from. So that's why humans are so important, because there's something that we can always relate to somebody. How can I connect to the human of Carmen today?
Beautiful. I love this. I love it. It's so deeply meaningful.
Yummy.
Yummy. Absolutely.
I love that word. I'm going to use that word so much more. That was yummy.
It's just yummy, 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 yummy.
In Japanese, we say oishi. That means
oishi.
Yes.
That's a yummy word. So,
yeah, isn't it?
Seeing that you've been speaking about humanity, if you had the opportunity to talk with every single person on the planet right now, what is the message you would love to share?
Hey, y'all. If you see me, if this was a video that's being broadcasted, is it a video that's being broadcasted so they could see me? It's like, hey, y'all, if you see me, you might see like this is an Asian guy. He's kind of short or whatever. He has long hair, all these different things. What if there was a message I wanted to share to you is that anything that you're going through right now, I know some of you might be hurting out loud or quietly hurting. Whatever it is, underneath that pain, there's something there. That pain can serve as a purpose for something. That pain can serve as potentially a passion. Now, you may not reveal it right away, but some know that breakthrough and breakdown are two sides of the same coin. And so just know that even if you think about some of the biggest breakthroughs in your life, was there a breakdown that preceded it? Whatever pain you're going through, there's a breakthrough on the other side. Right? You're enough. And your voice is worthy of being heard. Pain into purpose. You're enough. Your voice is worthy of being heard. That's the power of 3.
Wow. Sure. That touched right here. Thank you. That's
Thank
so
you. I'm being moved by that too. I don't even know why.
sure.
That's what I would want to say though.
Ah,
That's what I would say. Because yeah, I know what that feels like. I know what that feels like to discount my voice like it doesn't mean a damn thing. And it's so lonely, it's so lonely. So that's a part of my biggest inspiration for FlowFam, for Find Your Edge, and all the coaching that I do. I want people to know, like, you're enough. You're enough.
ah.
You're enough.
Gavin, thank you. Thank you for finding that you're enough and for bringing the delicious human that you are to us. It's you've touched me in so many ways, in so many moments in this last hour. It's been beautiful. It's the way connection should be with humans. Just raw and real and messy and just full of love and energy. And you bring that through your work. So thank you for finding you and finding your voice and finding this incredible space, and for what you're doing to the many people that have the blessing and privilege to work with you. And thank you for being on the show tonight.
Thank you so much.
It's a this morning for you, and it's a tonight for me.
Oh, I love that. Day and night. I love that. The yin and the yang. We're home.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
Ushi.
Oishi.
Oishi.
Yeah. Oishi's great. Yeah. Oishi. And I'll end it with the final thing. It's called itadakimasu. It's something that we say right before we eat. But I took this Japanese concept and expanded it, and I heard it. It means, roughly translated, thank you for everything that it took to make this happen. So Carmen, itadakimasu.
It's a pleasure. To all of you watching, the BWB family, I so hope tonight, or wherever you are, whenever you're going to listen to this, whatever time it is, that you've had an ignite moment. Because what Gavin has brought to us is so powerful. The idea that our voice is like having 88 keys, it's an instrument right here that we can use every single moment of every single day. And be you, be messy, whatever it takes, just find your voice and don't worry about the words, just bring the energy. You are beautiful. You're a delicious human being. Express yourself and know that there are beauty in the blemishes.
Ooh.
Imperfect, and being imperfect is perfectly human. So bring your voice, bring your energy, bring that pace and volume and pitch and tone and melody, and let's connect. Let's connect. And we absolutely will create a new human story through self-expression. Thank you for being you. And till next time, lots of love.